All right, moving on to part D of the third problem from the sample midterm. So here we're given a very interesting limit. It's actually a one-sided limit. We're approaching 2 from the left, which means that our value will be slightly less than 2. It could be like 1.9 or 1.99999, but it's not gonna be 2 exactly, okay? And we have the following expression. 1 over x minus 2 minus 1 over x squared plus 3x minus 6. Now, how do you approach this? Well, what tip did I give you previously? I told you to first thing plug in x equals 2 and see what happens. And in this case, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be 1 minus 2 minus 2, which is 0. Sorry, 1 over 0. Minus 1 over, and I believe this is also going to be 0. 4 plus 6. Oh, this is not going to be 0. This is going to be 4, right? Plus 6, which is 10 minus 6 is 4. So 1 minus 1/4. Now, this you cannot solve directly, right? Because how do you find 1 over 0? So whenever you face such a thing on a test, what you need to do is you should try to basically merge these two fractions into one, and then if that one fraction turns out to be like some number, for example 1 over 0, then the whole limit would give you infinity, okay? But yeah, again, before that you need to merge them into one fraction. How do you merge them? Well, we need to find the, how is it called? The least smallest common denominator. I don't remember what the English term for it was, but you've already learned this in high school, so I'm not gonna pay too much attention to that. Now, an easy way to find that common denominator is to try to factor out the thing on the right. Or actually, look, this is not clearly not reducible, right? We cannot change it in any way. It's not simplifiable either. So we should try to figure out if, so what's the root here? The root is x equals 2, right? For x equals 2, this is equal to 0. The trick is to try to see if this same root is also a root of the right expression. If it is, then you can actually factor this out easily, and then you're going to have x minus 2 times something else. And it's only that something else that you need to add in order to find the common denominator. But in this case, if you try to plug in 2 here, you're going to have 2 squared plus 3 times 2, where we actually already calculated it, minus 6, which is 4 plus 6 minus 6, which is 4. Therefore, this thing is not a root of that expression. If it were, the result would have been 0, but it's not 0, so it's not a root. Whenever you get this result, whenever you get the result that it's not a root of the right expression, that means that your common denominator is going to be just the product of these two things, okay? That's just a simple way to do it. There are multiple ways to solve it, but I think that's the shortest approach. Therefore, the common denominator here would just be the product of the two. So that's x minus 2 times x squared plus 3x minus 6, okay? And now, if we take a look at the left fraction, we already have this part. Therefore, we only need to multiply by the right part, okay? So this is kind of like the Bulgarian educational system way of writing it down. It might be different abroad, but I hope it doesn't confuse you too much. I'm just going to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by this fraction. And here on the right, we already have that fraction, so I'm left to multiply by x minus 2, okay? So now, in the result here, I would have 1 times this expression, which is just x squared plus 3x minus 6. Now, I just have a common denominator, right? I just found the common denominator, which is x minus 2 times x squared plus 3x minus 6. But now I'm not done with the top, right? So from the top, I wrote down this part, and I need to actually, let me put it in brackets, and from it, I should subtract the right part, which is just x minus 2, okay? All right, we got this. So from here, I'm going to have limit of x approaches 2 from the left of, and now the numerator would be x squared plus 3x minus 6 minus x plus 2. I'm just calculating this. Over And the denominator, I just keep copying, right? X minus 2 times x squared plus 3x minus 6, which gives me limit as x approaches 2 from the left of x squared, and now I have, notice, plus 3x minus x, which will give me plus 2x, and then I have minus 6 plus 2, which is going to be minus 4, over x minus 2 times x squared plus 3x minus 6. Now, I could try to factor these out, but trust me, even if you do, you're not going to find a direct solution. These are not easily factorable. So I'm just going to leave it this way, and I'm going to actually try plugging in the value already, okay? So at the top, we would have, so now you actually don't need to even write this down fully, because we're going to get something very interesting. At the top, we're going to get 4 plus 4 minus 4, which is just 4. At the bottom, let me just calculate these separately. So I'll start with the right one. We're going to have 4 plus 6 minus 6, which is 4. So here, if I plug in 2, I would get 0, right? But keep in mind that this is a one-sided limit, okay? That's the key aspect here. This is a one-sided limit, which means that we're gonna be close to 2, but not exactly 2. And we're gonna approach it from the left, meaning that our x could be something like 1.9 or 1.999, right? But it will never exactly reach 2. So if our number is very close to 2, but slightly less than that, then we're going to get a very, very, very small negative value, right? Because if I take 1.999 minus 2, that's going to be negative, but very close to 0. Therefore, I'm going to have some sort of an infinity because it's very close to 0, right? But is it going to be a plus or minus infinity? So look at that. And at the numerator, we have a plus, right? In the denominator, we'll have a minus, okay? We just calculated it. Plus divided by minus gives us a minus. Therefore, our final result would be minus infinity, okay? So once again, when I plug in x equals 2, the numerator will approach 0. So I'll have something divided by something very close to 0, which is going to give me some kind of an infinity. But in order to determine the sign, oh my god, come on. In order to determine the sign, I need to check. Now, in this case, it's a one-sided limit, which means that x will be slightly less than 2. And if it's slightly less than 2, then this is going to give me a slightly negative value, very close to 0, but slightly negative. Because the denominator is negative and the numerator is positive, the entire result, plus divided by minus, gives me a minus infinity in this case. I think that's one of the harder problems, or at least in my opinion, it's kind of harder. I need to know how to find the common denominator, which is high school stuff, but this part here is not high school, so you need to be very careful with it. If you have questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll be glad to help.